Hello, I hope you all had a wonderful spring break. Welcome back to Mrs. Bisson's virtual classroom. Today we are going to be learning how to solve one-step addition and subtraction mathematical equations. For this lesson, you will need a sharpened pencil with an eraser, a calculator, your guided note sheet, and you'll need to, of course, follow along and fill in the spaces as prompted in the video. And, of course, your headphones. If you are missing any of these items, please pause the video and go retrieve those items and resume when you get back. So let's review. I know we've been working quite a bit with equations. So what is an equation? Well, the word equation actually gives us a hint because equal is actually in the word. So an equation is a statement that the values of two mathematical expressions are equal, indicated by the equal sign. For example, x minus 5 equals 15. And we worked quite a bit with inverse operations. So what is an inverse operation? An inverse operation is an operation that is opposite of the other. So, for example, the inverse of addition is subtraction. So what is algebra? It sounds like a scary term sometimes, but I know you'll all do wonderful with algebra. It's so much fun, and it's something that you'll actually need to learn so that you can build on those skills, so that you can do multiple step equations, and you'll be doing equations in algebra this year and next year and all throughout your high school career. So it's very important that you pay attention and you learn these foundational skills so that you can do all of those other fun things as well. So algebra is a branch of mathematics in which symbols, usually letters of the alphabet, represent numbers or quantities and express general relationships that hold for all members of a specified set. Wow, that was a lot of information there. So essentially, when we think of algebra, the symbols, or the usually letters, are the variables that we're talking about. So it could be x or y. I know before I told you that you could use whatever number whatever letter that you wanted, and some of you chose to use the first letter of your name, which is perfectly acceptable, and that's actually algebra. Did you know that the word algebra is rooted in the Arabic term al-jabar, which means restoration? So essentially you are restoring the equality of the equation, making sure it's balanced on both sides. So that's something interesting, a little fact that you can remember and tell your parents and your friends. So what does it mean to balance an equation? Well, the definition of the word equation means that both sides are equal. Therefore, finding the correct value of the variable will balance the equation. For example, there's a picture here of a balance, and 3 plus 2 equals 5. You can see that there are 5 canisters on each side. Therefore, the balance is correctly horizontal there and perpendicular to the frame of the balance, indicating that it is balanced. So let's talk about addition. So one-step addition equations, I know that you'll be able to do this. In fact, you can probably look at this one and tell what the variable is right away. But this is just an example to help us better understand how the problems are set up. So in this one, it's cute because they used a monster for the variable. So this would be something like, if we're working here, if that was an equation on your test, it would probably look like this. So they're just using the little monster as the variable there. So you know that here's the balance. So it's x plus 1 equals 2. So the first thing that we do is we find the inverse operation. So we know that this is addition, and we know that the inverse of addition is subtraction. So what is happening to x here? What is happening to the monster? 1 is being added to the monsters. So we're adding 1. Okay. And in order to use the inverse operation here, we're going to subtract 1, right? So in order to get rid of that 1, we have to subtract 1. But we have to subtract 1 from both sides. So we know that this is what you do, and this is how you undo that. Remember, the addition property of equality states that whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other. So we are going to subtract 1 from this side, and therefore we have to subtract 1 from this side as well. And we know that 2 minus 1 equals 1. So x is equal to 1. And we knew that because we used our do and undo chart. I highly recommend that you use your do and undo chart on every problem that you do. And I will expect to see that on the test, because even though it seems really easy now, we will be working with multiple step equations, and you will definitely need to use that do and undo chart. So in order to balance the scale here, we see the little monster's name apparently is Pants, and there's 1 here but 2 here. So in order to balance this, we would of course need to remove 1 from that side, and then also remove 1 from that side, and see how it's balanced. See, if I took and added 1, oh no, that doesn't look right. So we need to make sure that and see, I took too many, so that's not balanced. So we need to make sure that it is balanced, and you can see that it is balanced. So I'm going to go ahead and enter his weight as 1, and that is going to be correct. Okay, so here the third step, a very, very important step, is to check your answer. So you simply replace the variable with the value that you found, and we knew that x was equal to 1, therefore 1 plus 1 equals 2, and we know that that's correct. So we know that our answer is correct. We checked it, and we know that we have the potential to actually get 100% on our test, because we have the ability to check our answers and make sure that the work that we're doing is perfect. So let's try another problem. This is a little bit more difficult, but certainly not very hard at all. The commutative property states that addition problems and multiplication problems can be moved or switched without changing the answer. So for example, in this problem that we have here, it says -7 plus x equals 12. If you feel more comfortable with addition and multiplication, you can say x plus a -7 equals 12, if that helps you. That is perfectly fine to do that, but remember that is only applicable in addition and multiplication, so you can't use that strategy in subtraction and division. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is my do and undo chart. So what is happening here to x? Well, a -7 is being added to it. So we know that we're adding a -7. So in order to undo that, we need the inverse of addition, which is subtraction. So we're going to subtract a -7. And because of the subtraction property of equality, we know that we have to do that on both sides in order to retain the equality of the equation. So we have to subtract a -7 from this side. But that looks funny, doesn't it? So, and I'll put that here in our undo. We've worked a lot with the keep, change rule here in a lot of the previous things that we've done. So we know that subtracting a -7 is the same as adding a +7. So we know that we can actually add a +7 to both sides, and that will isolate our variable, which is x. And we know that 12 plus 7 is 19. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is actually check my answer by replacing the variable. So I'm going to say -7 plus x equals 12. Now it's important when you're checking your answers, even if you switched it around like this before, always use the equation that was given to you by your teacher, or if you're doing some practice problems that's on the worksheet or something like that. Just in case you made a mistake on your own, you don't want to check using something that you've done. You want to check using the original equation. So you know that's -7 plus x equals 12. So -7 plus 19 equals 12, and go ahead and use your calculator, see if that is correct. And we know that it is correct, so we did a great job. All right, so now we're looking at subtraction. So let's look here. We have one-step subtraction equations. These are essentially the same steps, except the inverse is going to be adding rather than subtracting, because we're working with subtraction problems. So look here, we know our inverse here is going to be addition because we are working with subtraction. What is happening to x? Well, it is 5 is being subtracted from it. And therefore, what do we need to do? We need to add 5 to both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. That gets rid of our 5 because of the zero principle that says that +5 and -5 equal 0. And we're going to add 5 here. And we get x equals 12. So let's go ahead and check our answer. Of course, we always check our answer. So x minus, 5 equals 7, and 12 minus 5 equals 7. And that is correct. So we did a good job of solving that problem as well. You are ready to go ahead and get started practicing. I know that all of you are going to do an outstanding job in this unit. The biggest issue that students have had in the past is paying attention to those negative signs. So make sure that you're paying attention to the negatives and really using your strategies such as circling the operations or circling or underlining anything that you feel is pertinent to solving the problem correctly. And of course, always check your answer. That will help you identify any issues that you've had when you were solving the problem.